So I wanted to talk about this Green New Deal in this, in terms of my opinions of it, and also, when on the last video where I was actually reading the frequently asked questions list that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's office posted. In terms of, breaking down the overarching idea. But when you actually read the document that is a non-binding House resolution, it includes all kinds of things that really have nothing to do with green energy or cleaning up the environment. There's a bunch of stuff in there on social justice, for example, paying reparations to indigenous peoples, which study history, which some of you may be aware that I am chasing my degree in history currently. It is widely accepted that there were no indigenous peoples in the Americas at all. Everyone came from Africa, essentially, and some people during the Ice Age crossed a land bridge that got them in from Asia into North America and populated the Americas, etc. So when the Europeans from the Old World came to the New World, bringing disease with them that the people of the Americas at that time did not have any immunities to, they were largely wiped out. The estimates are up to 90% is what I've heard, is what's been published. There are varying degrees of that, but without that disease, conquering, which is what they did. They didn't steal the land. It was conquered. It was taken by superior numbers, superior forces, superior weapons. That's the lands were conquered by people that had more power. And at the same time, honestly, if disease didn't wipe out so many of them, they would have had a hell of a time doing it. I'm not quite sure that the landscape would look like it does. In any case, she's talking about paying reparations. You want to talk about paying reparations? Fine. If you're talking about, paying reparations for broken treaties, that the U.S. government made promises, gave lands to people, and then, rolled it back. We know historically that happened too. You can make an argument for it, an argument I would listen to. Why it's in the Green New Deal, I don't know. There's also an outline for ending the gender pay gap, which study after study after study, when controlled for choices. For example, women will largely choose, rather than to be a surgeon, they choose to be a pediatric doctor. Surgeons make more money. But when you don't control for that, people in the medical profession, there is a difference between what men make and what women make when you don't control for what they're doing. It's also been detailed very specifically that men don't take off nearly as much time. Men work more hours. Men choose to work greater overtime. And this is largely, generally speaking, it is a median. It is not the rule. It is the median. And so the argument then comes to, oh, well, girls aren't offered the same opportunities in education in STEM. They are right now. There's actually more women going to college in higher education than men are. And there are actually cities in the country where women, for the same work, with the same controls, are paid more, which is illegal. But I don't imagine anybody's going to say much of anything about that. There are countries in Scandinavia the Norway, I'm trying to think of, it's Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, I think, that for many, many years used the power of law to create an egalitarian system where women were guaranteed the same exact opportunities as men. And what's very interesting, in 40 years worth of studying the results, the more egalitarian, the more options provided, the more men and women actually revert to their gender roles. They're more comfortable in those the stereotypical gender roles. You have more women in teaching, more women in nursing, more men as firefighters and cops and engineers, etc. So for her to monkey wrench that in there into the Green New Deal was also of some concern. What's interesting to me is that we can make arguments all day about whether or not, anthropomorphic climate change is real or not. Personally, here's my complaint. Why in the hell do you listen to politicians? Why would anybody listen to Bernie Sanders tell you what climate change is and what the effects are going to be? Why would you listen to Sean Hannity or Rush Limbaugh tell you about what climate change is and what the effects are? That's just plain stupid. To me, it's flat earth crap. It is making an arbitrary determination. I'm a skeptic of pretty much anything. when I look at all of this stuff myself, I'm much more inclined to believe the scientists that have made a commitment of their entire lives, their careers, to the study of climate change and what's going on with it. And at the same time, I also look at, I did just a few weeks ago, because I'm researching a project in which I'm going to do a big video on climate change and the research in both camps. I'm going to give it a very fair shot. Is all of the failed predictions that have come from the IPCC and from the different panels that have been put together, all of these predictions that have failed and have changed and have become different. And so what that just simply tells me is that while there's definitely something going on, perhaps, and this isn't yes, it is, this is a perhaps, all of the disciplines necessary to put this together haven't quite figured out how to make those predictions accurate. So the Green New Deal is about, essentially, we've been told that, by 2050 or 2100, depending on who you listen to, we're doomed, essentially. One of the other interesting things about, she actually cites this most recent IPCC report that I believe it was 13 different companies, studies that were done by the U.S. under Trump to study the effects and what's happening, is that there's no prescriptions. They don't ever really say how. What they say is that we need to reduce carbon emissions by to maintain to drop the temperature 1.5 degrees to pre-industrial levels, 1.5 degrees below pre-industrial levels, in order to be effective. They don't say how that's going to happen. As it is, everything is taking place as it can, and it's taking place slowly, and it makes a heck of a lot of sense the way it's going on. Right now, Democrats and Republicans have been arguing for years about our dependence on foreign oil. Right now, we've almost eliminated our dependence on foreign oil by actually being able to export more than we're importing, for example. And that's what's happening right now. More natural gas is being used. Pretty much coal is gone. Sorry, Trump fans, but he's not bringing coal back. Coal is dead, and there's reasons for that. So how it is that her plans to mix forced egalitarianism and reparations with, dropping temperatures to 1.5 degrees Celsius below pre-industrial levels, I don't know how that they're related at all. And if they all are at all. In any case, what we got right now is we have a populist president. We have this populist congresswoman who, it's funny. She says that conservatives are afraid of her. I've seen this too. People say, oh, well, they're afraid of her. Nobody's afraid of her. We think she's an idiot. I'm not even a conservative and I think she's an idiot. She doesn't scare me. What scares me is people that will accept what she says at face value without doing any real thought or considering what it is that she's saying or whether or not it's possible or whether or not it's even true. That is far scarier than her. She's got a cult of personality. She has the ability to reach a lot of people, and populism tends to happen when things are so broken that we're willing essentially to listen to anyone that doesn't sound like the people we've been listening to that broke it. So we have Ilhan Omar, another one. She's talking about how, Lindsey Graham is compromised because he's actually gay, and Trump is blackmailing him with a video that proves it. Did you hear about this? It's going to be on 7 Days of Stupid, the next video. So we have, Trump is a populist, Omar is popular, these are, and Cortez is populist. Populism comes from when the system is so screwed up that we need to hear voices like that, and generally they're voices like theirs. These are not the brightest people in the world. They're not the best qualified for the jobs. They don't have the best possible plans. Some of what Trump does, I will argue, is effective. At the same time, because they're idiots, and we kind of all know this, what we have to be on the lookout for, because the next stage in all of this, if things don't change, is somebody who isn't an idiot, that has that kind of cult of personality, that can actually communicate his or her ideas to the point where we end up with another Lula from Brazil, or another Chavez from Venezuela, or another Mao, or another Mussolini, or another Stalin, because that's what happens, and we need to be very careful that we're not just jumping on board what these people say because we need it, because we need to hear it, and that's what's going on. See you next time.
Asshole! You're an asshole! And you know it!